Hello, and welcome to the Congruency Queens Council podcast. I'm Lori Halliday, wise horsewoman. Steeped in decades of therapeutic, somatic, interspecies practices, I have cultivated pathways of deep listening, reflection, regulation, leadership, and counsel. Let's unpack real life together. Issues of racial disparity, trauma, mentorship, mastery, wins and losses as we honor each other's journey and glean the wisdom. We co-create the powerful culture and the conversation of transformation here. There are gifts in the shadow. And so together, we go gold digging through congruent and aligned stories and lives. Tune in to the heart-centered, influential leaders of the Congruency Queens Council. Jenn Acosta, thank you so much for joining us today on the Congruency Queens Council.
Yes.
I'm so privileged to be connecting with, looks like the first 8 people that I'm meeting with are all biracial, congruent, heart-centered, influential leaders. And that's really why I chose you and why I work with you, because you are one of the most congruent women that I know. And so I want to welcome you and just thank you. I want to start by thanking you for taking the position that you take for yourself and in the community and really in our teams. The work that we do, it really allows me to relax. And that's why I fall into this friendship with ease, because I know that you're aligned with what you really think. On our last podcast, I did go ahead and let people know that we're on the ranch and that the dogs and sounds may come in, and that's a part of life.
Yep.
I've done all the things I can do to control them. So anyway, enough about that. I just wanted to thank you and invite you and ask you if you would start by telling us a little bit about what you do, what your life's about, and what's Lori talking about, this congruent and aligned leader. Like what exactly am I speaking to? Welcome, Jenn.
Thank you, Lori. I'm so glad to be here. I'm totally honored. And yes, as the sun shines in on me and I have shadows, this is what we do. So I am a master coach and an alignment expert and online entrepreneur. And sorry, excuse me, talk about dogs. My son just walked in. I love them to death, but of course, distraction. Anyway, so, I am super passionate about helping specifically women to live a life that they dream about. I know it's possible. I've seen it in my own life and many of my clients. And that is my utmost message in whatever is how to align your soul's purpose, the reason why you're here, with your message in the world and being able to get out of the way. And then also, let's be honest, we live in this 3D world. So it's about how do we monetize it? How do we actually use our message that I believe God, the universe gave us, and actually be able to live a life that does pay us really well, so we can live the life, as I say, of our impossible dream life, to actually live it and be it.
Yeah. You're speaking to the edge that we often don't speak to and that I don't often hear about. I don't always hear the aligned life, the purpose and passion, the vision with the money.
Right.
And so I love it that you open with that, which is that because many men and many people don't have any qualms about saying, I'm here to make it happen for me and a bunch of people. And we're like, yeah, we don't often hear women speaking to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful for you to say that. And I hope people are tuning into that a congruent and aligned life can also look like incredible wealth, support, buoyancy, ease.
Totally. Yeah. Well, thank you, Lori. I mean, we could go, there's so many places we can go with that. But what I'll say with what you said is simply put, I mean, I really do. I did a lot of work for many years in like energy work. So I did actual hands-on energy work with people for years. And I still work a lot with energies and the quantum realm, if you will. And without getting too deep into that rabbit hole, which it's, maybe our part two, we can do that. But money really is energy. And so much about this, about creating a life that you love, is being able to yield to yield that energy of yours, to be able to I really don't like the word manipulate, but if I could use it in the highest vibration to sort of steer your energy in a way.
Shape.
Shape, that's a great word. To shape, the energy of money, of love, of wealth or success or whatever that is, into a reality that we love. And I think that there's, I see entrepreneurs and people in the spiritual world and coaches and in a few different categories. And one starts when, we just want to make money. We just want to make the money. And then there's like the spiritual people category where it's like, oh, we don't care about money. Who cares? We just want to spread love. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what if those two were actually married? And because to me, money is an accelerator. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're speaking, money just adds speed and power to it. So why not to this add the speed and power so your impact is that much greater, right? And you'll see that, some people start off, which I think, which is another rabbit hole we can go into, but desire is a beautiful thing. And people start with the desire for more money, for more freedom. But what it can turn into is when we get the car, when we get the paychecks, when we get the clients and the house and all the things, we suddenly say, this wasn't exactly it. I think it was, Lori, like Jim Carrey said, he wishes everyone would become a millionaire and famous, so we would all realize that it is not the answer to our dreams or to the secret of life. It's just not. And so I think it's good to have that desire that sometimes gives you the fuel to go for it, right? But then you realize, oh, it's not really about that. Like, that's cool. That's great to have, but it's actually about the other part. And then when you start, you see that they can also they really do bounce off each other,
Right. So that in fact, the aligned life, which is aligned to all kinds of things that are important and vibrant and thriving in our imagination and our life that we're aligned with, and also doing whatever the pieces are and the work are. And to me, this is the big mystery and the big question is to allow the aligned life to also be the abundant life, right?
Yes.
And so this is kind of the dance. Now I'm going to pop open the box on this and let everyone know why I'm always saying coaches need coaches is because Jenn Acosta has been my coach for more than a year now, Jenn. We hit our more than a year mark now.
Wow.
And I've done so much work with you and it has changed my life, period.
Oh.
And the people who I work with, I changed their lives.
Exactly.
And that's because in case people are wondering why I take notes, it's because people are dropping gold. Like, take note when people are dropping gold. And what I heard you say is, if we take the judgment and perceptions, personal and cultural, off of money, what is money? Money is an accelerator. I like that. That really works for me because I actually have visions and plans and things that I can see and imagine. And I could see how money would create an acceleration towards those and a freedom around those. And so I love to look at it that way. It almost feels like magic or fairy energy that could accelerate me in this way. And the more I hold it in that way, that it is an accelerator, that it's mysterious, that it elevates,
Mm-hmm.
the more that I can relate to it, honestly. When I hold it in a way that is like, I don't have enough, or this is what I have to do, or
Right.
these things are related to money, or these, have been talking about this because it's tax time. These tasks are frustrating or not my thing, that all those ways where I kind of let myself get misaligned with the
Right.
actual energy of acceleration and fairy dust and magic, and also rhythm and fundament, right? Money can add, it can be an accelerator because it adds fundament and foundation. And then once we get our footing in that way, and we have our footing in our foundation, our own tendencies for rhythm and acceleration really are held, really held. So that's what I feel like it's been for me to be in coaching with you, and to be held in that way has allowed
Mm.
me to be more aligned, and honestly do a lot of work on what I think and feel and perceive around money, or root chakra, money, power, sex, creativity, um, abandon, all kinds of fun stuff, ecstatic dance, like it's all there for us, right, in the root chakra. And I'm certainly not giving up on art and creativity. And so right there in the same house is where money lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. And exactly what you said. I love what you said, because so many of people, and I for a long time thought it was about the money, but an accelerator needs something to accelerate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about what do you want it to accelerate? Is so exactly what you said. It's like taking the emphasis off the money, because all of us have a money blueprint, as I call it, or money history, money energy. Like it's what our parents did, it's what their parents did. Like, so babies don't come out thinking money sucks or money's hard to get. That's stuff that we take on, right? And we all have that a bit until we start clearing some of that out. And so this is really about taking the emphasis off money, because sometimes that's a huge charge for people, and looking at, okay, what will that money accelerate? So what is my message? What do I want to say? What's the legacy I want to leave? Like, what is my voice for? What is this body what am I using it for?
Mm-hmm.
Going for that. And then the money will help catapult.
Yeah, elevate.
Exactly.
Create the advance and the buoyancy, really be that springboard.
Right.
I recall you recently, we have the privilege to hold space in Clubhouse on Fridays and Sundays at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you were
Yes.
recently, as we were talking about mother-loving magnets that we are, we were thinking about this manifestation and money, and you were sharing something that really struck me about your father. Is that okay if I share that? That he was a doctor?
Please.
Yeah.
Yes.
That he was a doctor, and that he was a wonderful doctor and a wonderful father, and there was so much love, and he really spent his whole life and all of his energy and all of his creative force really pouring it into that job. And then perhaps he died, more earlier than we would have hoped and wished.
Mm-hmm.
But he had really spent his life, and I mean he spent it on what he thought his worth and value were, which had to do with his job in that very explicit and specific way.
Yes.
So on the one hand, it's like, wow, that's beautiful in some ways,
Yeah.
that he let himself just pour himself into that. And then we who are still alive can look at that and wonder, like, what would it have been like if he had had a more balanced life?
Exactly.
Where if he hadn't had this ancestral that we all carry, which you spoke to, these kind of slave codes or ancestral codes and patterns, family of origin beliefs around money, what might
Yes.
it have been like for him? And then selfishly, we can wonder, what might that have been like for you and the kids, if he could still be here. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that you brought that up. Thank you. And so much of it is, really unhooking is the word that I like to use from those. And, some of it will stick. I mean, I got my work ethic from him, and that has taken me far, because man, I I can roll it, I can, exactly. I can go, that man he was doing house calls all hours of the night for 50 something years, just serving. And that was beautiful. And like you said, Lori, there, his heart, there was a lot of stuff he wasn't dealing with inside, and he couldn't slow down, and he didn't. And reflecting back now, I see how I could very well go that path, but I am and have unhooked those parts. I've kept the parts that work and that feel good, and I have that drive and that work ethic, but I'm unhooking the parts of the self-denial, of the uncomfortability with my feelings and emotions, of the have no idea how to manage this and this and this. He never was taught that, and he never did that self-exploration, that work. So I appreciate what you said, because I do feel like, the word choice is thrown around, and sometimes it very much does not feel like a choice, but there are levels of choice. And I do feel like that choice is available for us to sort of pick what works and lovingly unhook what doesn't.
Yeah. I love that visual and that imagination of unhooking, because they
Right.
are hooked into us. And
Mm-hmm.
some of them we're not even conscious about, and they weren't even trained in us in this generation, or even in our parents' generation. And
Right.
so when we look at our parents, we're looking at 5 generations behind them, and then it starts to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, do you have any feelings or thoughts as we've been cracking this open so much over the last year during this intense time of allowing ourselves as a collective to look at racial disparity, social injustice, our broken police and criminal systems, legislature, all the things, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, all the many people that I can't possibly name. There are so many. And all the way up into this recent last week, when this beautiful grandmother, Lola, Filipina Lola, was attacked. And I know that you and I haven't really had a lot of time to kind of digest it, but we've been living the life of I was saying to Sarah Cruz on the last interview, living the life of a twin spirits. Mm-hmm. So even though we may not have focused or identified up to this time, many people, frankly, partly out of survival, I think people sort of keep, walk on a one line just for survival to try to fit in, or I can say that for myself. And now as we start to hear more of the voices of the people of color, of women in general, which is really big for both of us, I'm wondering what you notice and what you think maybe is an old thread, and what you feel is a forward thread or a forward voice just for you in relationship to any of that. I know you have a daughter and a son, and I'm just kind of wondering where that's landing with you.
Yeah. So I just want to get to the heart of your question. So specifically with multicultural, like how's that unfolding? Is that what you're asking, Laura?
Yeah. Like, what's that been like for you, and how does it, if it does affect you, and what's it like as for me, when we end up in a room of 100 Filipino, our people, like, what is that like? And I'm just kind of wondering how it's unfolding for you, what you see, what you notice.
Mm-hmm.
Any pieces.
Yeah. So, it's so interesting. Thank you for asking this question. The short version of, my dad, as Lori's had said or suggested, he was born and raised Philippines. So when he was 19 years old, he had, all his life, he said he had a dream of becoming an American doctor. That was his one dream. Yeah. Grew up in poverty in the Philippines, had nothing. At 19 years old, he left the Philippines with no money. He worked his butt off in school in the Philippines and got a scholarship in Ohio, a medical school in Ohio, left with no money, knowing no one, and not knowing if he'd ever go back home or whatever. And he followed his dream. And he went to medical school for 8 years and did all the things, and was a medical doctor for almost 50 years. And Lori, it's now as an adult, I look back, and first of all, I always wished that what I realize now is, what I'll say is, there was shame. He had shame. He wanted to be American. That was his thing. And there was a lot of shame. So there's 5 kids in my family. He never taught us Tagalog. Obviously he was very dark and he looked Filipino. So, everyone knew him as Filipino, but he didn't talk much about it. And I had Lola and Lulu, and we spoke to them on the phone, and they came and visited every now and then. But it was, the whole culture was sort of kind of hidden from us. And I didn't really think about it as a kid growing up in New York. And my mom is Irish American. So, totally different. And, it was when I became an adult that I realized, he was actually really ashamed of the poverty of some of the culture and his family, I think, and not so much ashamed of being Filipino, but I think there was, again, a lot of poverty, a lot of suppression. I think that was more of it. And why I'm saying this is because your question is so great, because I feel like through you and Alexis and Clubhouse, go figure, Clubhouse, I am healing this major part of me that I never knew I even needed to heal, because it was very kept separate through no fault of my own. But I wish that my dad would have taught us more about the culture, would have spoken to us. I heard him speak to his parents, so I know some curse words, but I wish I knew the language. I wish there was more of that, and meeting more people, meeting more Filipino community, and really seeing what's unfolding in the world now. I feel this massive healing. And that's, girl, it comes in waves of joy and oh my gosh, freedom, and waves of just tears for not even for me, but for just my dad, for his parents, who were lovely people, and I love them. And I think they wanted us to know more Filipino, but my dad, I think, stopped them. So there was pain there. And, so I'm so grateful to be now in this place where, as an adult, I'm learning, I'm open, I want to hear stories. And my kids, who are 15 and 13, my dream, and I will do it, is I want to take them to the Philippines. I want to meet family that I've never met. I want to swim in the oceans there. I want to eat the food, and I want to, oh my God, you're going to make me cry, but I want to, bring my dad, who never got to go back, his energy back, and heal that which he really didn't do. And honestly, Lori, we're talking, I think that was part of his pain. He died of diabetes and a heart attack. And I know that was part of his pain, was he never really sat with those feelings of shame and just whatever he was feeling about his family, his culture, and that kind of thing. So.
And this is why we do. This is
right.
why we purposely let ourselves sit in the discomfort, and even in the discomfort of the conversation of my daughter talks about it a lot. Ella says, I'm white presenting. I'm white presenting. And what that has done for her and for you and for me, it has opened up certain doors. It has created less friction because we are white presenting.
Right.
And I'm resonating and relating with everything you said. It went straight to my heart, because I was raised primarily in the United States, well, not primarily, completely, solely in the United States, but primarily by my white family.
Right.
And so my grandmother would literally say to me when I would wear something, if it was too colorful or who knows what, she'd say, "You don't want to look like your mother, do you? You don't want to look like your mother, do you?" Who
Right.
Who would say that to the daughter? You don't, yeah, I do. I want to look just like
Of
my mother.
course.
So
Right.
we
Right.
really do. We want to look just like our mothers
Hmm.
for a while,
Yes.
and then later we realize I am my mother. I am going to have a feather in my hat, and I'm going to have a rose on my ear, and I'm going to wear large floral pants, and I'm going to be exactly my mother. And I love this imagery of I want to go home, and I want to go be with my people, and I want to put my feet in the sand of where all of my people, generations, have put their feet. I want to go into the water, into the Turk. I've been only there once, Jen. I want to go
Mm.
out on the catamaran, and I want to jump off
Yes.
into water, and it's just 10 or 12 feet down, but there's starfish right there in the white water. And I want to bring my children, and I want them to know in this time and age, finally we can say, yeah, we might be white presenting, but I'm fully also full of my people. I'm full of their ethnicity, of their voice, of their food, of all of the things they were afraid of for so many generations.
Hmm.
And I was sort of pointing to that thread originally because I think for a lot of us, this is where a lot of our money work is.
Yes.
Right.
Totally.
The money work, and not that there's not challenges in the white families that I grew up in around the way they were holding money. But there was just so much privilege and relaxation around money with my white family, and not with my mother, and not with my
Yes.
Filipino family.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, thank you for just kind of staying with that and fleshing that out a little bit, all the way out into the ocean in the
Yes.
Philippines. And
Of course.
I'd love to go there too. So maybe that'll be a big family journey where we all go.
Yes.
And enjoy that so much. Um, I'm watching our time. We're doing well. We've got about 5 to 7 more minutes. So
Okay.
I just want to stay with it a little longer. Um, I also want to just, if it's okay, take a moment to talk about Dark Horse Rising, because you are one of the 8 women who I've invited. No pressure if you're not
I
you're still working on it.
know.
Who I've invited to Dark Horse Rising, and I earlier spoke to how it's been such a carrot for me out in space. This moment where something I've never done, Jen. I mean, I'm ashamed to say this. I've always raised money for um, children of color who are in, having financial disparity, part of the system. Through foster care, I've always raised money for kids and families who um, don't have the money to come to camp. And this is the first time I will host a training strictly for women of color.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm kind of walking in the line of that, of like, how could that be at 52
Mm.
that that's never happened? And all of the space I've been holding over the last year through these other trainings has been to hold the space for this particular meeting. And I feel that you and Sarah and the other women who are involved in the training are such the epitome of this awakening that we're having, and this line that we're walking, that is bringing us back more to our actual authentic voice, our actual authentic tone, the real fullness of us.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm so grateful for that, and for the attention we're allowing ourselves to put into our heritage, into people of color, because I think we're the bridge makers. We always have been the bridge makers, in lots of ways, in our family and in our lives. And now, as congruent, compassionate, heart centered leaders who are also women of color, people are listening to us and people are watching us. And so it feels like a really ripe moment for us to um, be present. And I know you stay really present, um, with engaging people in social media.
Mm.
And I play with that too. I think it's difficult for people actually to get out there and share their voice, to get out and speak.
Yeah.
And I think it's critical, and that people are wanting to hear very authentic, specific tones of people who they trust and love. And is there anything you could say to the simple practice of learning to speak to your people, like learning to speak to what you're standing for and to your people? How was that for you on your journey to start going live, showing your face, using your voice? Can you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's definitely been a journey. I mean, I've been doing it a few years now, which, especially on Facebook now, it's no big deal. And I dealt with a lot of like oh, what do they think? Da, 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 so
Yeah,
it gets better is what I'll say. It gets easier, if you will.
I think that's the
And
biggest hurdle though. Like it
yeah,
seems small to you now, but I think the whole big hurdle is I'm going to do this when I look different. Thomas Patterson spoke to this in the first interview. I'm going to do this when I look different. I'm going to do
oh,
this when my, shelf is clean, or whatever. Right.
right.
And so to you, it's you a little bit past that, but was that a big hurdle in the beginning? Like how you look, what people think, all the details?
Yeah, it definitely was. But I also knew, for me, Lori, I knew what the alternative was. And that was me as a mom going out and getting a job and, working for somebody else and not being home for my kids. And, so I do have to say my vision always, it was like,
Your
it
why.
was always enough to like kick me in the butt, you know?
You were
Um,
motivated. Your why was right there in your house saying, come
totally.
on, you can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and this is the beauty of going through, what do they call it? The dark night of the soul, or going through hell, or really literally being on your knees, is that I've visited that place numerous times in my life where it was just like, okay, I don't know. It was like, what? I don't know. And so the surrender and the fuel that came from those moments fuels me every day. I mean, every day. And it's much more important to me than if my family approves, or if this one approves, or if people like what I say and all that. Is that I really don't ever want to be back there again, in those really desperate, lost, scared, alone places. And so, I don't know if everyone can relate to that, but for me, I'm so grateful because I know many women that they're okay. They're very comfortable and it's okay. And that is a big problem. Like, you don't think it's a problem, but I'm so glad I got so uncomfortable in my life, because that's why I am where I am. And that's what's going to take me to my huge goals. And I have big goals, but I think comfortability is a real issue,
Mm,
you
mm,
know?
mm. Yeah, it can lead to complacency and
Exactly. Yep.
stagnation. And
Right.
and then when we allow certain parts to become stagnant or develop stagnation, um, our systems and our way of being can start to shape around that.
Yes.
As opposed to if we are stepping out on the edge a little bit and going forward before we're ready, which is such a
Hmm.
thing. Like we're just never going to be ready. Like people need, I mean, I get to just keep going forward. I'm just never going to be ready. Like
Never.
dogs and the whole thing, forget it.
Right.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares if there's dogs at your house, right?
No
Nobody
one.
cares if you have a messy ponytail or not, right?
Yeah.
But all the little things that I have been able to let get in the way are fading really quickly for me. And just to kind of bounce back with this question into the idea of being a biracial leader, I now something has happened during this whole Black Lives Matter movement and all the
Mm.
disparity and focus in the last year, where I literally feel emboldened and emblazoned and empowered to speak.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to make people feel comfortable about, how I look or how they look or whatever. I really would love to investigate together about how we are surviving and what we're doing that's creative during this time. And, you know, I don't know if I'm really ready to do that. And
Right.
and I'm right with you doing it anyway. And every time I do it, I have a little more fortitude to do it again.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
and I get off it. I get off it more and more. Like the juice is in the conversation. The
Yeah.
juice is in the message.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. And if I can just say, I know we're wrapping it up, but you're a coach, so you get this, but I think that, I was never taught, I know my mother, my father were never taught how to process and manage their emotions. Right. And so thank you, Carl. And so what happens is then we grow up as women and we feel a lot of emotions and we feel a lot of things where most of us women are big feelers, but we never knew how to work with them, to process them, to manage them, to let them pass, which is what feelings do. And so we let our feelings make and our emotions make our decisions. And that is a huge mistake. So what the opposite of that is, then you deny your feelings and emotions. But what I'm interested in, and I know you, Lori, is allowing our emotions and our feelings to inform us. And what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about is really dialed back. All our feelings and our emotions are past patterns anyway. So we don't want to allow all those feelings that Lori's talking about of like, oh, I shouldn't, I'm not ready, but those are all feelings, thoughts and feelings, they're all patterns of the past. So much of this, and I know what Lori does, what I do, is really taking the time to understand your feelings and your thoughts and your brain and how that works, and having a commitment or a vision of the future and where you're going, and allowing that to inform your should I go live or not. It's not about your feelings. And that's not to say you shouldn't or couldn't feel scared. You should feel it. You should understand what that fear is in you. And yet don't let it make your decisions, because I did that for years and it made my life chaos. In every way. I let my feelings inform my decisions about food, about men, about parenting choices, about business choices. And I made a mess. And so now it's really about, the feelings are important. The emotions are valuable, but this vision for my future and my presence now is what makes my decisions every single day about everything. For the most part, I'm human, but you know what I mean.
In the beginning, it's new, it's a sprout, it's a fledgling, and then over time, it's got more substance, and it's a stronger, and it has more veracity. And my palms are sweating through the whole conversation, right?
Yeah.
I'm more curious about the conversation, and so this speaks to really what you were saying earlier, which is, will we be mature enough to sit with the uncomfortability? Will we be mature enough to sit in attention? And it took us so long to develop the shapes that we're in. The embryonic field that we created made these shapes, and it took so long. Will we be willing to flex that other muscle over and over and over? Go back and do it anyway. Go back and do it anyway. It's just like walking. You start walking, you walk a long distance, your knees hurt. 3 times later, your knees don't hurt anymore. 3 months later, you might be wogging. A year later, you're jogging, like whatever.
Right.
We got to flex the muscle and be willing to flex the uncomfortability muscle as much as we are willing to flex the comfortability muscle, because we've been doing that for a long time.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, Jenn, I wish we could talk more. So we will have a part 2. And I am so curious about your life in the quantum and all of the other processes that you did. I know you lived in interesting places. So I would love to engage you again in the future. And of course, whatever you're up to, I'm curious about. So thank you for your willingness to just bring your leadership and your voice so candidly right here to the Queen's Council. exactly the kind of woman and person who we want to hear from. And I love you, and I'm grateful for your time, sweetheart.
I love you too. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for having me. And I'm honored. And I can't wait to watch all your episodes because your conversations are so rich and needed right now. So thank you, Lori.
Thank you, sweetheart. Kiss the kids.
I will.
Love you.
Talk to you soon.